What was the dumbest thing you thought as a child? I used to believe that night is brought about by clouds, dark ones, of course. Never felt the need to clarify this with anybody, it was an obvious fact. I used to think trees made wind. Trees move, wind happens, can't explain that. Edit, my highest rated comment is about how dumb of a kid I was. Thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Tips Fedora/S. That if you drink while peeing you will keep peeing until you stop drinking. Why are you drinking while peeing first of all? I was under the impression that there were tiny rats that lived inside of my stomach, and when they ran in their wheels for exercise it would make me need to pee. What the fuck? That a blowjob meant you blow air in the boy's general direction. Thanks to my older siblings for making me believe that one, lol. I knew it was more than in a general direction, but I did think the phrase was fairly literal. Poor first boyfriend. I used to think that the sunlight rays piercing through overcast days were how new Power Rangers were selected. I wanted to be a Power Ranger really badly, so I was always sad when I couldn't be in a ray. I don't understand how there are adult people who genuinely reject proven facts. The dinosaurs died because you touch yourself at night. That all companies with a TM trademark were owned by my family, only because those were my initials. Is your name trademarked? I remember watching the movie Cocoon with my grandparents. I could not have been more than 4. For some reason I deduced that in order to become adults, children had to die in these pool cocoons and be reborn old. I freaked my cousins out and had a whole group of kids crying at a holiday party over our impending doom. Ruined Christmas pictures that year. Are you by chance a caterpillar? I believed hamburger and hot dog buns were only available for restaurants, not civilians. Mom used sliced bread, toasted to obliterate the gums, at home to make burgers and hot dogs. I believed that until the age of 10. Can you imagine? Such dangerous items in the hands of the untrained public? Better leave it to the professionals. I thought that highways functioned like airport moving walkways. Imagine how fast we could go. Yay, I thought that they moved too. It was also weird for me to come to terms with the fact that lanes are just lines on the road, you're not like locked in or anything. Like I thought you had to actually make an effort to change lanes, as if they were guided. I used to think that once you finished a grade in primary school you became smarter than the teacher of that grade. Just like Pokemon gym leaders. I thought that there would be a baby inside every girl's stomach as soon as she is born, and inside that baby's stomach too there would be a tiny baby. The cycle goes on, and that the baby keeps growing as we grow, and after getting married the doctors will cut the stomach and take the baby out to make space for another baby. Well, women are reborn with all their eggs in place, but not mature cells. I always thought that women immediately became pregnant upon marriage. Like, no choice in the matter. As soon as they were married, like on the altar, the woman's body would just know and start growing a baby. I remember when I was about 7 a friend's mother was getting remarried and I asked my mother when she would have her baby. My mom replied, well, it's up to them if they have children, and I was so confused. I, female, have always had a fear of needles, and I knew baby equals hospital equals needles, and therefore I vowed I would never get married so I wouldn't have to have a baby. That there's a tiny human inside the TV who executed what the remote was telling him to do. For example, when you press the button to increase the volume, he is being hit in a specific way that lets him know that he has to go and manually increase the volume. I imagined a barracks full of tiny men living in the tap who poured out little buckets of water when I used the sink. That if people are going to study something they just sit in a circle with other students and think about what they want to do. As soon as they find out, they are done and they can leave. I wish, lol. I like the way younger you thought. Though we'd have too many Lego engineers if that was the method. I felt terrible as a kid to eat. I wouldn't eat in front of people, and every meal I would find myself thinking poor food, getting eaten because I was convinced they had emotions. I anthropomorphized everything as a kid. I also felt bad for the food I ate and for stepping on grass. The worst was stuffed animals. I remember we had a Christmas thing at school in first grade in which everybody brought a gift and then the teacher drew numbers to see who would get to pick the next gift. There was a huge Cabbage Patch tea set that all of the girls were drooling over, including me. Well, my number was called first, but I skipped the tea set and picked this dirty old teddy bear because I could not stand the thought of him sitting there watching as everything else got picked before him. You must be a screenwriter for Sausage Party. I was vaguely aware of a TV show called Ironsides, about a lawyer in a wheelchair. Whenever I heard the word paralegal, I thought it meant a paraplegic lawyer. It made sense to me that people in wheelchairs could make excellent lawyers, based on the nature of the job and their physical limitations. I thought paralegals were lawyers who'd parachute to the scene of a crime so people would have their story straight before the cops showed up. Like paratroopers. So far this one is one of the more logical ones I've read. I always thought that kids were born with your shit, so one day you would go to the toilet and take a dump, and then if you look down there would be a child. And I thought that if you didn't check you might accidentally flush the baby. My older siblings told me that mom shit me out and tried to flush me down, but I managed to crawl out. It explained why I was a naturally good swimmer. My uncle is a priest for an obscure Hindu offshoot religion, and he told me quite young that I shouldn't play sport because each person only gets a set number of breaths in their life and getting out of breath used them up quicker. I used to spend hours laying in bed trying to make my breaths as long and slow as possible. In fairness, I actually have a decent lung capacity as an adult, so maybe it had a positive effect. Geez, that had to scare the hell out of you. Good breathing technique for relaxing, but not if you're afraid you're going to die. I used to believe that people that spoke other languages translated their language to mine in their head. OMG. I thought for years that French people thought in English but translated things in their head before they said them. I just assumed learning/speaking French was as difficult for them as it was for me. I went to French classes from age 4, it wasn't until I was probably 11/12 and really thought about it that I realized they think in French. Even now I probably think in French, like seriously. I'm almost 30 and I'm not sure it's sunk in yet. This is a common belief among children. I recall a story about Japanese children asking if American parents would talk to their kids in Japanese if the English was too hard. If a man kisses a woman for a long time, the woman is pregnant. This one's actually true. It happened to my brother's co-worker's best friend's sister's nephew twice. Grandparents were assigned to families. Like, I didn't know my grandma was my dad's mom. I don't know what I thought, but I remember being at my great-grandmother's funeral, and asking my mom why my grandma was crying. When she replied she is sad because her mother died, I was like head explodes, so that's why we had to go visit her all the time. I just assumed she was this random old lady and I didn't like to visit her, because I couldn't be my rambunctious chatty little 4-year-old self. My mom is a shusher. I then had to ask about all of our other relatives. Same, I remember asking my mom why did Uncle Greg call Grandma Mom? I thought if you left a video game on then a character would come out of the TV and kill you. I was a bit paranoid as a small kid. Building on that paranoia, I thought those for sale by owner and the existence of just for sale signs implied that many houses were for sale not by owner. I thought sometimes a random person came to your house and put it up for sale without your consent. Little did I know I had discovered the concept of foreclosure. That the local mosque in my city was Aladdin's vacation home. Over there's the bakery, that over there is the bank. Excuse me? Oh, that? Haha, well, that's Aladdin's vacation home. Similarly, I didn't realize there was anything supernatural about God and Jesus. I just thought they were a father and a son around my own age at the time, that lived in the cathedral nearby. just like my mom and I lived in an apartment together. Own 2 credit cards and use them to pay for each other for infinite money. Depending on your age at the time, that's actually a pretty good understanding of credit cards for a kid. Incorrect, sure, but better than most kids understand it. My mom did this for years. Credit card check to get cash to pay another card off, then that card is free to use a check to pay off the other in a few months. Then things go bad, so you open up a third to balance everything out, and before you know it you're like $100,000 in debt and broke. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.